His initials popped up.
There's a together mode. Okay. Would put you in an amphitheater.
Down my Starbucks coffee, and I wouldn't have done that if I had known it.
Yeah,
So
I did.
I planned on
Your bandwidth is so small that it won't display everything. So, let's see which assume.
They'll be in the city, we'll be in the county.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a million reasons. Don't do it flat. Certainly, be on the side of the voting. Annexation crowd.
It's 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's public hearing. My name is John Urino. I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. If everyone would mute their devices now at the beginning so there won't be any feedback, I would appreciate it. I conduct rezoning hearings on behalf of the mayor and council and make findings of fact, which I put into a written report along with my recommendation, which I then send along to mayor and council for their consideration and for their final decision. My report will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the rezoning application, the staff report, all written approvals and protests, all correspondence, and the testimony given at tonight's public hearing. I will also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. A recording of tonight's testimony is being made. If requested, a transcript can be prepared. With that in mind, if you decide to testify tonight and I call upon you, please speak clearly and begin your testimony by stating your name and your address, and please spell the last name. It helps the transcriptionist very much. We have 3 cases on the docket tonight. One is a special exception case, and in special exception cases, the zoning examiner makes a written decision within 5 working days after the close of the hearing. In rezoning cases, within 5 working days after the close of the public hearing, I prepare a preliminary report, and then after that, a final report. The final report will be issued 2 weeks after the close of the public hearing. For those of you who wish to receive a copy of the preliminary report and are not a listed party on the case, please send an email to tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov. Again, tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov, or call the Planning and Development Services Department. A copy of the final report will be available from the Planning and Development Services Department, and I send the final report along to the mayor and council. At the scheduled public hearing on the rezoning case, the mayor and council will then vote on the matter based on my recommendation along with other factors. Tonight's public hearing will proceed in the following manner. I will open the public hearing on each case and ask Mr. John Beal or Ms. Maria Gaioso of the Planning and Development Services Department to give a brief presentation.
Bunch of bullshit.
Excuse me, whoever does not have the device muted and is cursing, please mute your device. Thank you very much. After the Planning and Development Services presentation, I will ask the applicant or the applicant's representative to make his or her presentation. I will ask then to hear from anyone in the audience who wishes to speak. I would ask that you please wait for me to call on you to testify so we will have a clear record of each person that is speaking. Since I cannot have any communication with anyone on any of these cases outside of this public hearing, I would invite you to speak tonight if you would like to do so. After everyone in the audience has had a chance to speak, I will ask the applicant or the applicant's representative if they wish to make any additional remarks. With those rules and procedures in mind, we will open the public hearing and begin with case C9-2108, Catalina Highway Casitas, Phase 2. Mr. Beal or Ms. Gayoso, would you like to give a brief presentation?
Yes, Mr. Urano. This is a request by Lexi Willett of the Planning Center on behalf of the property owners, Saunders Amos LLC, to rezone approximately 6.42 acres from SR to R2 zoning. The rezoning site is comprised of two non-contiguous parcels, both generally trapezoidal in shape, located approximately 500 feet west of Catalina Highway and approximately 1,400 feet north of Tanque Verde Road. The preliminary development plan proposes the development of 68 luxury casitas, detached small single-family residences with parking, landscaping, common area, and storm management, including water harvesting basins. The project is phase 2 of Catalina Highway Casitas and has a proposed density of 10.59 residences per acre. The first phase, case C9-20-02 Catalina Highway Casitas, was authorized by the Mayor and Council on August 11th, 2020 for rezoning from SR and RX1 to R2 for 126 casitas on approximately 12.44 acres located adjacent to Catalina Highway, immediately east of the Phase 2 site and adjacent to Catalina Highway. The overall project density, including both phases, is 10.29 residences per acre. The submitted design compatibility report indicates all homes will be single-story with a maximum height of 25 feet as allowed in the R2 zone. The rezoning site is on property recently annexed by the City of Tucson, with zoning being translated from Pima County SR to City SR in original city zoning cases, C15-21-02 JTRP Summer Annexation District. The rezoning consists, Again, the proposal includes 68 1, 2, and 3 bedroom casitas with a maximum height of 25 feet. A minimum 10-foot wide landscape border and a 6-foot wall surrounds the site, providing a visual and physical buffer to the surrounding residences. The preliminary development plan shows 457 proposed parking spaces arranged throughout the site in a manner that appears to provide convenient parking for the residences and oriented towards the interior of the site away from the neighbors. The preliminary development plan did not indicate the location of trash receptacles, but staff is recommending a conditioning requiring that separation and that these be placed 50 feet at least from the neighboring residential property line. The overall design of the site meets the policy direction of Plan Tucson and the Bear Canyon Neighborhood Plan for providing design that is sensitive to the existing neighborhood and protects the integrity of the neighborhood. The project has been designed to have minimal impact on adjacent existing neighborhood. All activity is internal to the site, and the perimeter landscape border and wall provide separation from the surrounding residences. Subject to compliance with the attached preliminary conditions, approval of the requested R2 zoning is appropriate. As of today's date, there have been 0 approvals, 2 protests. 1 protest is outside the 150 feet and 1 is within the 150-foot limit.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Ms. Willett, would you like to be heard?
Yes, Mr. Urano, I would. Hello, everyone. My name is Lexi Willett. I'm with the Planning Center. We're located at 2 East Congress, Suite 600, downtown Tucson, 85701. I'm also joined this evening by Linda Morales. also with the Planning Center. She'll be available here to help me with any questions, should anyone have any. But thank you, Mr. Beal, for your excellent presentation. Just a few items I'd like to touch base on throughout this process. And as Mr. Beal has stated, this is a second phase to a project that was presented before you, Mr. Urino, back last May for the first phase, in which we came before you for 126 luxury casita units. The request before you is for the second phase, which was recently annexed into the city earlier this month. So the request before you is to rezone a little over 6-acre site, and site being 2 non-contiguous parcels on the north and south end of our phase 1. We're proposing an additional 68 units. As part of this process, we held a neighborhood meeting back in February, where we had 4 attendees show up at that meeting. And the concerns that were discussed primarily there was the adjacent screening, drainage, and wildlife, and then just timing of construction and the schedule for that. And so after the meeting in February and prior to the annexation going before you in May earlier in this year, myself, Linda, and the developers met with 5 neighbors to further discuss and continue our conversations regarding screening and drainage. And so as a part of this evening, I'd like to add a couple things to the record. I believe it was already forwarded to you this evening. So you have a copy of this, but just so everyone else on the line can hear what we'd like to propose. So the developers, as a result of a meeting that occurred on May 17th with 5 neighbors who live within 400 feet or have a vested interest in the project, we'd like to propose the following 2 rezoning conditions be added to rezoning case C92108. And the first condition reads, from Catalina Highway to the eastern border of the northern parcel that comprises phase 2, Morrell Way shall be repaired to address existing drainage concerns. So we're proposing to fix or replace damaged culverts in the roadway, and will resurface Morrell Way with a stabilized surface in accordance with Pima County Regional Wastewater Detail 11. And those improvements shall be completed prior to the issuance of the first building permit in phase 2. And then we'd also, as part of our initial proposal, we recommended a 6-foot wall around our site. And in conversations with Mr. Moakley, who is the most impacted neighbor, he requested a 7-foot screen wall in between. And so in our meeting, we heard a concern from a variety of neighbors. So we would like to extend the same treatment that we offered to Mr. Moakley in our neighborhood meeting to the rest of the folks who immediately abut our boundary. So the second condition we'd like to make a part of the record is that all perimeter walls for both phase 1 and phase 2 shall be 7 feet in height, except for those along Catalina Highway or those adjacent to the Bear Canyon Apartments. So basically the southern boundary of our phase 1 and phase 2 site. And those may consist of a combination of masonry wall and wrought iron fencing. And then there were a number of other commitments that the developer made in these meetings that aren't condition worthy. However, we want to make them a part of the record just to honor our commitments with those neighbors that we met with. We'd like to make these as part of the record. So in addition to the 2 conditions listed just briefly a moment ago, we'd also like to make part of the record that the developers committed to facilitating a connection or access point between Morrell Way and Morrell, so between the 2 Morrell Ways that are north and south are run along north of our project, and then run along our northern boundary of phase 1. We'd like to facilitate a connection or access between those in accordance with the wishes of the property owners living along Morrell Way at the addresses listed on the record. So that's 9101, 9123, 9149 Morrell Way, and 9211 Catalina Highway. And then further, the developers committed to maintaining or replacing with a similar material the existing fence along the driveway for the northern parcel of phase 2, which was a commitment we made with Ms. Donnelly, and we'd like to make it as part of the record there. So with that, unless you have any questions for me, Mr. Urino, I invite you to turn it over to the public.
I don't. Thank you very much, Ms. Willett. So everyone who wants to participate, on the toolbar on your screen, there's a place where you can raise your hand. So I'll start by calling on folks who have raised their hand. And once that is complete, I will then open it up. And obviously, we're here in a virtual setting. I intend to hear from everyone who wants to speak. I would just ask that people be patient as we go through the list of folks who may want to participate. So Ms. Morrison, Christy Morrison, were you here to speak on this case? Ms. Morrison, if you're here, you'll need to unmute your device and then speak, starting with your name and address. If you're not wishing to speak on this case, we can move on and I can always come back to you. So next person who comes up, or next name comes up, is Catalina Point HOA. Whoever that is, please identify yourself, name and address, and then please go right ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry you can't really see me well. My camera's blocked.
That's okay.
So our community address, I represent Catalina Point as a whole. Our community address box is 9100 East Dawn Post Road. Our physical address for the community is 9595 East Catalina Highway. And I just want to protest this for a second for the simple fact that I just found out about this meeting at 9:55 this morning. Communication has been laxed to Catalina Point. We haven't gotten any updates. I've given the information to the developers and the two women who were representing the developer, and we haven't been kept in the loop. And if it hadn't been for Tanque Verde Valley Association, we would not have even known this existed. My concern is you're talking about drainage and flooding. We have not had our drainage and flooding issue in the 30 years we've been here. It has not been addressed by the city or the county. And you're talking about addressing flooding from Morel Way along Catalina Highway. What are they going to do from south of Morel Way all the way to the drainage detention basin that crosses over North Showcase Lane on that side of the property? Because that affects the Showcase Lane residents, which there are 6 homeowners. And our detention basin has been destroyed from the floodwaters coming down Catalina Highway. It has never been addressed. The other concerns that residents have are along the highway and the increased traffic. We have no buffer zone. The increased community, the ingress egress along Catalina Highway for that development is unfair to us because it's going to increase noise and traffic. So we have no buffer from Dawn Post Road to North Showcase Lane.
Thank you, sir. Could you state your name, please? I know you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. It's David Sorrell, S-Y-R-E-L-L.
Thank you, Mr. Sorrell. I appreciate it very much, your input and your testimony tonight. The next person is Christy Morrison, has shown up again with a new listing. So Ms. Morrison, would you like to go ahead? Perhaps not, so we'll come back. The next person whose hand up is identified by the initials CT.
My name is Christopher, last name is Tarr, T-A-R-R. Address is 3180 North Deer Track Road. A couple quick questions. Am I correct in thinking the developers, you're a California developer, correct?
This is not a question and answer in that fashion. If you raise issues, Ms. Well has the opportunity at the end to speak to those.
I do believe.
So please go right ahead with your testimony, sir.
That's fine. So my big concern is we're moving suburban ranchers to 3.3 acres per home to an incredibly high density of 10 homes per acre. What's to prevent all the other suburban ranches to sell off and rezone? And also, how do we actually prevent this project from moving forward? because a lot of us moved out here in the Compatibility Valley because of the suburban ranch and the fact that we thought we were protected because we bought in suburban ranch zoning, knowing that we'd have space and then still be desert for wildlife and everything else. And yet the city's just chunking up these county properties, rezoning them, and then making them look like California. So I would like to understand where we go from here to prevent further progression of this, and even this project altogether, because I think there's a huge public outcry amongst the community that would really not like to see this happen. This is not the density we bought into. This is not the density that it was zoned for. And all of a sudden to multiply the density by a factor exponentially ruins this valley, this portion of the valley. That's fine, the city, if you want to do that, but downtown, but this is not that part of the town.
Thank you, sir. The next person whose hand up that I see is Patrick O''H.
We can't see you or hear you.
I can hear you fine, so please go right ahead.
Okay, my name is Patrick O'Hagan, Patrick, O''Hagan. Address is 9468 East Harrison Park Drive, 85749, right off Harrison Road. I'm impacted by this and concerned about what I thought was a relatively, what I, in my engineering experience, would refer pretty negatively to a pretty simplistic analysis of the traffic and the, when I look at the only thing that's been provided is some trivial statement that there's going to be a turnout lane and widening along Catalina Highway into this development. Now, as I look at the density in there and try to, and again, lacking any significant clear drawings or of this, it's hard to determine term radius and whether or not, for example, how are school buses going to pick up and return kids from various schools into this dense housing area? And then how will the buses be entering and turning through and traveling within and dropping kids off within that? Or will they be discharged and, put on buses and taken off buses along Catalina Highway? And if the direction, what is this, omnidirectional? I mean, up, northbound and southbound? Or will this be, kids be expected to be on one, say, dropped off on the east side of the road and then have to cross over in, Catalina Highway into their development? I doubt that there's adequate space and turn radius in that development to put buses to go throughout. So I think they're creating a unaddressed, very high traffic hazard for kids, entering, being picked up and discharged into buses that this hugely dense traffic or housing area is going to accommodate. And with 1, 2, and 3 bedroom homes, there will be, and I haven't seen any indication of what the numbers of forecast children are and school age kids into that. And I think that's wildly, grossly remiss. So I think there's a tremendous weakness in the standpoint of the attendance safety, let alone the traffic impact while this is going on to discharge kids in what's only characterized as a wide turnout. And where does that fit geographically? And again, why haven't there been any drawings or clarifications of this? Everything is kind of, I hate to say it, lip service. All of these distances. I think you're going to create a huge, you guys, I chuckle at the labeling of this as, what did you call it? Luxury or, housing. And with that number of homes, and location of traffic, trash storage and all that, this is going to be a sewer waiting to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Hagan.
Yes.
The next person I have with a hand up is Mary Ann. Please proceed, Mary Ann.
Did I unmute myself?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, cool, thanks. Okay, we live at 9989 East Morrill Way. We've lived here 29 years. And I agree with the gentleman before Patrick, I can't remember his name. We bought out here to be, it's suburban ranch, it's rural, it's quiet. It is not downtown Tucson. And it is going to increase the traffic, and it will increase the amount of the traffic. We don't know who's going to live there. I just agree with the other gentleman. We are totally against it.
Thank you for participating. Just state your last name for the record.
Shepherd.
Thank you very much. The next person I have is listed as a phone number, 520-403-6033. Please go right ahead.
This is Arlene Rosner, ROSNER, 9149 East Morrill Way. Again, I voice the objections as the others before me. The density is
do that.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Raise your hand.
There's no plan for drainage. There's no plan for traffic. I just don't understand how you can do this to our desert.
Okay.
Hello?
Thank you. Go ahead.
I also would like to know what you're going to do about Morrill Way. I heard her make the record that it was going to go through. The gate is still locked. The road is actually a river right now due to the storm. You have those houses in with only a 5-foot wall when you promised us 6 feet. Too dense for this area, not against developing, just too many houses and too transient a society. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for participating. And if I could ask the folks who've already testified to put down their hands so that I can make sure I reach everyone, that would be helpful.
How do we do that?
You don't need to. I'll remember you because you've got a phone number there. But there's a way to, you put it up so you can probably figure out how to take it down, I would guess, but do your best. The next is T. Lundeen.
Hi, my name is Tamara Lundeen. I live at 3180 North Deer Track Road. We are right off Morrill. I drive down Morrill Way every morning and fight the obnoxious left turn from a large onslaught of traffic trying to turn left to get on Catalina Highway every morning, taking kids to school and back. Considering we are zone suburban ranch, I'm surprised by the density in this area already. I think it's pretty unsustainable for our desert, and being a Tucson native, I am sad to see the way that the city of Tucson is not keeping sustainability in mind. We left the denser regions of the city due to crime and hearing people doing donuts at 3 a.m. and gunshots at 3 a.m. to this beautiful, less dense suburban ranch region. And I am very upset that I just found out about this entire project. I think a lot of our community just found out about this project was even in inception only a few days ago. I found out about it from my sister, who got an email through the neighborhood app. And I am just really saddened and opposed to turning this beautiful community into what we already have throughout all of mid-Tucson. So I am definitely in formal objection if there is any possibility to revamp this and turn it into maybe 6 luxury casitas. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but this is not the direction of the community that we bought into. It's going to decrease our property values. Rezoning and expanding the city of Tucson has, not shown to really benefit anyone in this region. So I appreciate your consideration of my and the community's objection to this proposal.
Thank you, Ms. Lundeen. The next person is Teresa Seneff. Ms. Seneff?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Please go ahead with your name and address and then tell me what you'd like to tell me.
Teresa Seneff Carr, live at 11601 East Tankerverde. And I just want to formally say that we are completely opposed to any rezoning and any raping of the land any further than it already is at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much for participating. The next person on the list is Joshua Charbonda.
Hey, good job. You got it right.
Okay, thank
This
you.
is Joshua Charbonda. I live at 9945 East Warbonnet Lane. And I would like to echo my neighbor's thoughts around this. Living in this Tankerverde Valley has been a lifelong dream that we were finally able to attain. The beauty of the valley, the natural desert we have, along with the limited access to our neighborhood. We essentially only have 2 roads into the Tankerverde Valley. So adding this sort of housing in its density will increase traffic exponentially, as well as the transient nature of the housing that is being planned. One of the other reasons was safety. This is a neighborhood that my kids can go ride a bike still. I don't want to lose that. So I think we need to rethink this, keep the zoning as a suburban ranch. And I would also like to state that I did not hear about this meeting until yesterday. And I have several of my neighbors that would also like to contest, but due to work schedules, they were unable to meet the meeting today. So I would, in addition, like to request an additional meeting where we can make sure that everybody is informed so we can get a full consensus.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next person is David.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi.
I can. Thank you. Please go right ahead with your name and address and then your testimony, sir.
My name is David Amish. We live at 9925 East Warbonnet Lane, and we object to this development happening. I mean, it's been stated before why all of us live here in this area, because we like the seclusion. We do not want the city moving into our backyard. And this is what we paid for. These are our dream homes, and we're seeing the city coming and annexing land. There's also another development that's going on, proposed at the corner of Houghton and Tankerverde at the northwest or northeast corner, another big multi-unit development. This area is being ruined by the invasion of city of Tucson, annexing and bringing in their city. And what's also, crazy is that, city of Tucson has no problem raising our water rates because we're unincorporated. They do nothing for our roads out here, but now they take more money from us. And now they're encroaching into our life. Me and my wife, my family, we object to this, and that's what we're going on record for.
Thank you, sir. I want to call on Ms. Morrison again. Christy Morrison, if you are present and wish to testify on this case, please go right ahead.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Please go right ahead.
Thank you. My name is Christy Morrison, 8930 East Morrill Way, Tucson. I am in total agreement with everyone who has spoken here. I had a couple of other things too. This is going to cause so much more stress on our water and sewer systems that we have here. These systems are older. They were set up for more of a rural setting, and now we're going to put all these units in there working on the same sewer systems and sanitation systems that we have now, which is going to completely overwhelm the system plus our water. we're all looking at a low water use, but the amount of water that we're using here and then adding so many more units in here, more people, is going to put a huge stress on our water system. And also, what about the runoff of the water too? That's been brought up before. That's a big concern to us also, is how is that going to be controlled? Due to the destruction of the vegetation and the habitat of the wildlife is going to be destroyed here. I saw some stuff where they're going to put some plants and stuff out there, but the habitat that has lived there and used those trails for the wildlife quarters for centuries it's going to be gone. And also the wildlife will be pushed away also. And the vegetation, which helps to maintain our water runoff in rainy seasons like now, will be destroyed. And we're going to have flooding of the streets. We're going to have and so much traffic in the area that it's going to be a real problem. And also, someone brought up earlier about rental units. It's proven that crime increases if you have a rental unit versus someone in their home. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Lizzie, we have a hand up by Lizzie. Please go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I just want to ask two questions. Does the young lady who spoke on behalf of the company realize that all of her actions are visible to all of us? And number two, do any of you who are making this decision live in this zip code?
Okay, thank you very much for your participation. So I don't see anyone else with a hand up, and I see several people okay, we have another one, Joe or Kelly Findias. Hope I got that close to right.
Yes, you did.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, we've lived out here 50 years. This is Joe, last name Findys, Findysc, at 3131 North Santa Ana Lane. And yeah, we, like everybody else, moved out here a long time ago to be not in the city. And all you're doing is bringing the city to us, and that's not why we're here. So we oppose the whole project.
Thank you, Mr. Findias, for your participation.
You're welcome.
I see a hand up by Mavis Donnelly.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I live directly next door to the summer property where this is all rooted. And I have been here for 30 years. I'm an older woman. I have watched the Tucson city try to encroach upon us for years. I agree completely with what everybody said. I am unutterably opposed to this. I do want to mention on a positive note that the woman Lexi remembered about the 7 feet, because I think I would just, I don't dare say what I would do if it were a 6-foot wall, because she promised a 7-foot wall, but I am completely opposed to this. I think the concerns about safety are so shocking. I hardly have words. The drainage is unbelievably difficult already. The traffic, any of us know who have that intersection at Compatibility and Catalina, and Bear Canyon is almost as bad in the morning, is already just overwhelming. So I'm completely opposed. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Donnelly. Mark Hills, Mr. Hills?
Yes. I'm here as a family. We've also been here. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
We've also been in the area 25, 30 years, and we're at 9001 East Eagle Feather Road. And we're directly north of a big part of this project. And there's a lot of 2 and 3 family homes that are going to be there out in the front. But my main concern is at this point is, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people there living in this area. There's going to be a lot of traffic coming up Tanca Verde. We have a lot now, and Catalina Highway as well. All those folks living along in there. And then I see, and I have a little bit of some information from Lexi Willig, and I appreciate what she's done. But there is a drainage basin directly in front of my home, probably there at the south east corner, and drainage is pretty bad along our road right now. And I know we get a lot of water coming down through there at times, and I'm seeing two drainage basins, one to the north and one to the south there, which is directly in front of my house. And that's a lot of water across all that asphalt coming down that way. I don't know where things break, but that concerns me. And we really don't care to see the 7-foot wall. Great if it's going to happen, that's going to help. But we all oppose it as well. And we would like to see maybe some information about in the corner where it's going to go if we get so much water. How's it going to get out of there?
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hills. Next person I see on the screen is Sydney Devlin.
Hi, my name is Sydney Devlin. I live at 3111 North Tomahawk Trail, SYDNEY, Devlin, DEVLIN. I would just like to echo all of the opposition to this project going on and go on record with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for participating. Amy Fitch Haycock.
That's his basic response. Do any of you live here? And does she realize?
If this is Ms. Fitch Haycock, please go right ahead. If not, please wait your turn. Thank you. Okay, we'll try to come back to Ms. Fitch Haycock. Okay, so I don't have any more hands up. If anyone else would like to be heard, be happy to have more testimony from folks who phoned in or who have not raised their hand. So,
John, I have my hand up.
Thank you.
Catalina Point.
Yes, we heard from you, but go right ahead if you have something more you'd like to say.
Well, only because I like to edit my testimony for the simple fact that I found out about this about 5 to 10 this morning, and I didn't have time to prepare. But Chris T reminded me of some of the comments that were made during the meeting, which was disappointing that we weren't able to attend the other 2 meetings that followed after. But Catalina Highway up to Maru Way and all the way up to the mountain is technically all scenic corridor. I found out about 5:10 this evening that a 400-unit apartment complex is being built north of Ace Hardware on Bear Canyon. Adding this other casita development is only going to tie up traffic further, even though there are only 68 units or 126 units. Another 400-unit development along Bear Canyon is going to screw up our traffic and our water system here. In addition to the water problem that I mentioned earlier coming down from Catalina Highway, our sewer system gets backed up with the water that we have now. We have flooding on Sunset Post Road that goes into the detention basin, which has never been attended to. On top of that, I wanted to make a point. I've lost track of what I was going to say. Oh, shoot.
Take your time.
Hang on a second. It was the the water usage. I know they redid the piping that we kept losing our water off of Tanca Verde and Woodland, and it kept cutting off the community. But that's all those units are going to put a strain on our water, and the roads have not been repaired. And Showcase Lane, I've lived here for over 30 years. Showcase Lane has not been attended to. They just come and they patch it. And the bus route that somebody else asked about, the bus route, the city directs the bus route drop off and pickup through Catalina Point. They come down Dawn Post Road, around Sky Post Road, and out Sunset Post and Showcase Lane out to Catalina Highway. It's put a wear on our streets for the last 30 years. And it's very frustrating if those people are going to actually be a school, if they're not going to be senior residents and they're going to be family dwellings where they're going to be 2 and 3 bedroom, that's going to increase the traffic and the buses that need to come here to pick up. It's just, we're losing. I agree with everybody here. It's a quiet neighborhood. It used to be a quiet neighborhood. It's not anymore. You're adding all these people and you're increasing all the plaza rentals and stuff like that. And it's frustrating when somebody says to me, which was made in one of the meetings, that we can't deprive others from the stuff that we have here in the valley. Well, now the city is annexing this property and taking it away from us. And that's just not fair.
Right. Right.
Thank you very much. So I'm not sure I see any other hands up, but if, okay.
Yes, hello, I don't know if you can hear me.
I see you, so I'm going to call on CS Hotmail address. Go right ahead, ma'am. You have to unmute though. You're still muted, so please just go right ahead and unmute and then go right ahead.
I believe I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, we were trying to hear from someone else first, but go right ahead while they work out their technical issues. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. My name is Zach Taylor. My wife and I live at 2911 North Santa Ana. We're just right across Catalina from the planned development. Just want to echo, all the same concerns, drainage issues, traffic issues, water issues, and this planned development is just completely incongruent with the rest of the community. Most of us that live in this area paid premiums to have the properties that we do, and this high density housing is just it's going to hurt our property values. It's completely out of step with what the rest of the community looks like, and is not what we came for, and we're all going to see a big decline in our property values because of this.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I keep waving my hand and flicking my hand up and down. Although I've already spoken, I'd like to speak again. Pat O'Hagan.
Sure. If you have something additional to say, please go right ahead.
Yes, I do. Previously, I had questioned and asked if about the traffic study that was done for the impact at Tanque Verde and Catalina. The report that came back was some trivial and half-assed study that was done at a non-dense traffic. It's like taking the traffic study at 10 to 12 a.m. on Christmas morning. Well, I can guarantee you're not going to get accurate studies of traffic at that time of day. So the question was asked at that time, as I recall, to have that traffic study reevaluated and done more realistically and projection with actual numbers and forecasts for people to add to it, rather than, trot out some old BS study that was poorly done. And it's the same thing with all of these where we're having, here we're suffering in a drought, and where's this water coming from? We're suffering from areas of subsidence in this county, and developers are being given authorization. The net of this is I tend to become cynical that this is not meant to do anything with any of the questions or concerns that we have. It's just to provide lip service by the city and the various city agencies to those of us in the voting area of the county, and as encroachment occurs. And it's like there is no intent to do anything to consider that we might have a tinker's worth of dam with our investment, our concern, and our consideration for both the safety of the community or the safety, being jeopardized by this new development. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone else who is on the line who doesn't have the ability to raise their hand, if someone would like to speak, please go ahead.
Yes, this is Christy Morrison, 8930 East Morrill Way. Again, I had an interesting thought. We were told initially there was going to be 190 units, And my thought is, was that just sort of what was thrown out there to us? They had originally planned on 168, say, and after this meeting, it'll be put through because they'll tell us that the number had gone down when actually the number was going to be lower anyway, but they just wanted to get us to, like you said, have this conversation, and actually nothing will be done about it. That was my thought.
Okay.
And also, can we get a continuance of this meeting? How would we do that?
Well, you just requested one, and I will take that into account along with the other testimony tonight, both on your views of the merits as well as your request for an additional hearing. So thank you for expressing that. So I want to go back to the couple who have a Hotmail email address. I see you waving, but I don't think your microphone is unmuted, but go right ahead and try.
I know.
Okay, so I can see you're talking, but it's not coming through because I can see from my screen that your microphone is not unmuted. There's probably a button there you can push to up at the top. There's probably a toolbar you can push to unmute.
As just a notion, the moderator, you can unmute the individuals who can't speak. You have mute, unmute control as the leader of the meeting.
I'm not I respect your view on that. Whoever is the leader of the meeting, if you could unmute cs7248@hotmail.com, we can get that person's testimony. And thank you for that suggestion.
While they're still working on it, can I say something? This is Mary Ann Shepherd.
Sure. Please start with your name and address.
9989 East Morrill Way. I did speak earlier.
Yep.
I just want to be clear that I agree with everyone. That we're opposed. We've lived here 29 years. It will make the area more transient, traffic, and there was something else. I lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's suburban ranch. It's just wrong. And another woman just said too, we need to have the people that are still working that want to be part of this be made a part of it for when we do have another meeting. And I just got something in the mail yesterday. We just got something, and we didn't know about any of the other meetings.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a hand raised by C. Koch.
Yes, that's me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Okay. Yes, I live at 2925 North Rainbow Place, and I concur with Ms. Shepherd and all the others who have spoken. I can tell you, we've lived here over 30 years, and the traffic has increased so incredibly that I can't even get out on Morrill Way onto Catalina Highway without taking my life in my hands. And the traffic on Catalina Highway it's a speedway, and I just can't imagine adding that density in this and going from one house per 3.3 acres to that is just absolutely irresponsible, and especially when we are in a drought right now. I can't imagine you're even considering this. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. So I think the folks with the Hotmail address have unmuted. Would you like to go ahead?
No.
I thought so, but I'm the optimist. Okay, so we'll come back to you. LG. It's the initials. That's me. LG.
Unmute.
LG.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Can you hear us now?
We can hear you.
Now we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I moved into the Indian Hill neighborhood in 1974, and this whole area was rural. That was before even the shopping centers. There was one. They changed the road, and to have this development is absolutely against every principle of people who love the desert and have lived here. I'm a native Tucsonian. I have done everything to save our desert in many, many ways. I'm a total advocate, and tearing out all the plants and building apartments is just ridiculous.
I know that.
So please consider not doing this. This is against the principles. We're destroying our earth, and people move in here from the east and California. They have no regard for the cactus or the desert plants or the animals. We have, we're in a dying desert here. You have to help save our desert. Thank you.
Thank you. We need your name and address for the record. Thank you for that.
Callistia Sawyer, 3100 North Santa Ana Lane, 85749. We're right off Morill Way. I was on the corner of Morill Way and Santa Ana for 30 years, and now I built the house across the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. So go back to LG.
That's me.
Okay, please go ahead with your name and address, and then go right ahead.
My name is Elizabeth Moreland. My address, I live actually up the way off of Calle Entrada. It's 3851. And I agree with the traffic problems around Catalina Highway and Bear Canyon Road. There are constantly accidents. And I think that more development in that area is only going to increase the danger of driving in that area. But something that's not been addressed is on this particular side of the valley where this proposed development is and the development across from Ace Hardware. What is that going to look like for the schools in this area? Collier cannot handle the volume that this could potentially bring to that little school. And you've got a failing middle school that is available to my children because of where we are zoned. And I don't particularly think that just adding more children in is going to help with the issues that these schools face. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard on this case?
Yes, I would.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name's Monica Hills. I'm Mark Hill's wife, and we are at 9001 East Eagle Feather Road, and we are the property owners just to the north of the south portion of this development. And he had spoken earlier about the drainage and everything else. So we've been fighting this fight, or at least I have, for like the last 6 years, and I apologize, and I want to thank you for having this hearing. And I've talked to the developers, and I've talked to the ladies that are representing them, all very nice people. I understand they're all very local people. So that's one thing out of the way. But one of the problems that I'm having with all of this is that my parents, when they owned this property, actually were one of the last ones that were able to develop a well here. And I'm concerned about the drainage issues, like my husband had stated, and what that's going to do to my well, because we are natural here. We don't run off of Tucson city water, and we try to take care of everything. And I just wanted to address that issue also, if we can talk about that with you or with them, because we do, like everybody else, love to live out here, and all these people that are passionately arguing against this is all the same arguments I've had for 6 years against the county and zoning and everything else. And I appreciate everybody jumping up and standing up. But if this actually does occur, I also appreciate the developers talking to people. And it's difficult because we always say, not in my backyard, and sometimes it actually comes to our backyards. So thank you, Mr. I believe it's Lorino, is that correct? For listening to all of it tonight.
Yes. It's my duty and job to listen, and I try to do that as well as I can, and I appreciate your input.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard on this case?
I would, please. This is Amy Fitch-Heacock. I figured out how to unmute.
Okay, well, welcome. Go right ahead.
Thank you. My family and I live at 9960 East Fort Lowell Road, and I'm concerned that this is a continued theme where Tanque Verde Valley residents are concerned because we are county-based and we bear the burden of city decision-making, but we don't have any equitable representation, obviously. These decisions are constantly just made for us, not with the unique needs of our valley in mind. Certainly, I could echo all of the concerns here. Traffic is a primary one for me. The length of time it takes me to get into the city to go to work or to get my children to and from school or any number of things is really bothersome and really increases the amount of time that we're spending on roads. And then the other thing too, my neighbor reminded me of this ahead of the meeting tonight. A number of our older residents in this area have a habit of leaving during the heat of the summer. And so they are not here to be part of any of these conversations. And I don't really think that their absence tonight is surprising to any of the decision makers. I think that the timing of these meetings is deliberate in an effort to exclude their voices. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to be heard on this case?
Have you taken phone calls yet, or is that later?
Go right ahead, sir.
I'm Kent Meckley at 9051 East Eagle Feather Road. And I haven't heard yet. I had a nice conversation with Lexi Wellup the other day, but I'd like to bring this into the record if that's what we're doing tonight. The fact that in my southwest corner where East Eagle Feather begins and heads westerly to Bear Canyon Road, there is an established 50-foot easement on East Eagle Feather Road or trail. And it's 25 feet on each side of East Eagle Feather Road, the property lines between the north and south neighbors. And I did not see on any maps where the boundary line comes along the south side of my property and wall, setback and wall. And then at the end of my property, the beginning of East Eagle Feather Road at the 25-foot easement on the development side, I did not see where it went south 25 feet to avoid that easement. And then there would be, I guess, your setback and wall heading westerly to the Karchner property before you turn with the wall and head straight south to the Bear Canyon apartment wall. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that there is an East Eagle Feather easement 50 feet wide from my property westerly to Bear Canyon, and that there can be no building of anything on that 50-foot slice of land because of the roadway.
That's great. And that's not even in there.
Not in there.
So that's what I had to say on that. It may be in the record. Lexi seemed to be aware of that, but at the same time, I just wanted to make sure it was in the record at this meeting tonight, so that nobody slips up on that and that wall doesn't proceed on trespassing on the easement at the corner of my southwestern corner of my property.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Reichert?
Yes, Janice Richard, 8980 East Indian Bend Road. I object to the proposed rezoning for the same reasons brought up earlier, but I also want to ask if you would repeat the number of protests that you received. If I heard right, something doesn't add up.
That was Mr. Beal's presentation, and my notes of his presentation was that there were no written approvals and 2 written protests on file.
Yeah, I'm aware of more people than that who sent protests, so I don't. Thank you for repeating that.
Yeah, and just for background, the written approvals and protests come most directly into play when the matter is taken up by the mayor and council, because if there's sufficient number of protests within a certain distance from the property, then it triggers a supermajority vote of mayor and council. But thank you for calling that to our attention.
So that number of protests, That is the number pertaining to the tiny distance from the proposed.
Well, typically the Planning and Development Services Department would record all protests received and would note how many are within that area and how many are without that area. So, but in any event, thank you for your input. Would anyone else who has not testified like to be heard on this case?
Protest. We'll ask.
We need to put in a written protest.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I want to know how I was only notified tonight about this meeting. I want to find out how to put in a written protest because in the Indian Hill neighborhood, which is we're on Morill Way in Santa Ana, that we are just across the street from this project. Where can I send a protest? I mean, our neighborhood is totally against this development.
You can send it to that email address, which I'll repeat for you, tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard on this case?
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Go ahead.
So what is the radius area that is looked at for these protests that really count?
Ms. Willett will address that if she has any closing remarks. Now, would anyone else who has not testified like to be heard tonight on this case? Hearing no one, Ms. Willett, would you like to address any of the points that have been made?
Yes, Mr. Urino, I would in fact. So just to touch on the notification process, because a number of folks in the audience have suggested that an improper notification has occurred, and that is not simply the case. As part of the rezoning process, the City of Tucson requires that all property owners within 400 feet of the rezoning area and all city recognized neighborhood associations notified who are within 1 mile of the site be notified. So if you're within 400 feet and you're a property owner, or you're a neighborhood association that is a city registered neighborhood association within 1 mile of the site, you receive notice, and the City of Tucson actually generates those notices. So as part of phase 2, we held one required neighborhood meeting in conjunction with the City of Tucson Economic Initiative Office when the annexation was occurring. And then also as part of phase 2, we held a neighborhood meeting which was organized by a number of residents who live within 400 feet. And then we also met with the president of the Compatibility Valley Association at that time. Part of phase 1, we also held 2 neighborhood meetings. So and this was back in December of 2019, January 2020, pre-pandemic, and those meetings were held at the Bear Canyon Neighborhood Library. The first neighborhood meeting for phase 1 had about 30 attendees, and the second neighborhood meeting had drastically less than that, about half of what was there at the first. So in all reality, there's been 2 sets of notifications that have gone out required, and then we've held 2 additional neighborhood meetings. So, and then on top of that, to ensure that more people were notified as part of this process, we requested a modification to the required sign postings, because the City of Tucson requires when you post a sign for a public hearing that it be placed on the rezoning site itself or within close proximity. Considering that both of these properties are really internal to the neighborhood and are not visible from where a lot of people would see it, we took it upon ourselves, in addition to notify the property that was being rezoned, we also posted a sign on Catalina Highway, as well as one at where Morrell Way turns into I believe it's Cottontail Road or Cottontail Circle. So we took it upon ourselves to ensure that as much as we could notify everybody to make them a part of this hearing tonight, as well as have provided updates to the Tanque Verde Valley Association, which has had information since phase 1 on their website since phase 1 has started. So to say that folks weren't properly notified, I think is a misconception there. As far as whether or not the property has been annexed or is being annexed, this was already annexed, and Mayor and Council unanimously approved the annexation earlier this month. So we are currently in the city limits. This request is to rezone from the city SR to city R2. As far as drainage, we heard a lot of concern about drainage on Catalina Highway, as well as the drainage in the existing neighborhoods. And as part of this project, we are responsible for making sure that drainage from the development does not impact the adjacent properties. And so we have, as you have seen in our preliminary development plan, there are a number of really sizable basins. One across from Mr. and Mrs. Hill's property, which will capture a lot of the drainage that they had spoke of as a concern, as well as Mr. Moakley and the drainage that comes down Eagle Feather. So our anticipation is that will help reduce some of that condition. As far as traffic concerns, we have had 2 traffic studies done, one when phase 1 was done. And that was, again, the analysis considered during the holidays. So the one of the speakers mentioned that there was perhaps a time in which that this was done when snowbirds weren't in town, and the traffic study for both phase 1 and phase 2 were completed at a reasonable time. And both of those studies have indicated that the existing traffic network have a sufficient capacity to serve both phase 1 and 2 of this development, with the required improvements, which is a continuous left turn lane into the development on Catalina Highway, as well as to make sure that we have sufficient stacking in our internal access way so that there isn't any backups as people are coming down off of Catalina Highway heading towards Tanque Verde. So the traffic is come back saying that it is a reasonable development here. The other comment that we have heard is that the developers are out of California. That is not the case. The developers developing this property will also be the ones owning and operating the site. And they are local Tucson natives, born and raised, and have lived here their whole life. So there is a huge stewardship to the desert and ensuring that responsible development occurs in this side of town. One other concern that we heard was that this development will bring perhaps a lot of students or a lot of transient or riffraff. And this development is, in fact, a luxury casita development product. So our average rent rate, what we're looking at, ranges between $1,200 and $1,400 a unit per month. So that's more than a lot of mortgages. And so to say that these will be folks that are going to bring riffraff, I think is not true. These are people who are empty nesters looking to downsize their properties, have less maintenance, and live in an environment that has amenities in this side of town. And they're renters by choice. They're not renters because they have to be. They want to live in this lifestyle.
I know that.
The other concern that we heard was whether or not this was an appropriate transition. And as the city is growing their boundaries and bringing more property in, the properties all south of this site are zoned R3 and then commercial. So they're a much higher intensity and density. And so the apartments just south of this site average at about a 16 rack, which means 16 units to the acre. And then we are proposing a development of about 10 and a half residents per acre over the entire development. So as you can see, this is bringing that transition into this area of town as the city grows. One question that we heard was in regards to the 7-foot wall. I believe it was Ms. Rossner and Mr. Moakley have suggested that 7 feet wall is appropriate, as well as Ms. Donnelly. So we are in fact committed to providing nothing less than 7 foot of screening between our boundary and the site. And then lastly, Ms. Hills mentioned her family's well, and we are connecting to the city of Tucson's water. So we will not be drilling in any or disturbing any of the water table in that area. All of our water will be brought into the site via the public water system. And then just to reiterate Mr. Moakley's point about the easement on his property, to make it a part of the record, that easement is an easement that is an access easement, and we are not proposing to disturb that. And so the 25 feet that is on Mr. Moakley's property and serves as the access will be retained. So with that, Mr. Urino, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Ms. Willett. I do not have any questions at this time. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. Thank you, Ms. Willett. And I'm closing the public hearing on case C92108. Thank you all for coming. Have a lovely evening. Our next case is case SE2105, Merchand Vozek Lane. Ms. Galloso or Mr. Beal would like to present that?
Yes, Mr. Urino. This is an expansion of an existing adult care facility from 32 to 40 beds as an special exception land use in the R1 residential zone. The site is 2.15 acres near the intersection of Broadway Boulevard and Harrison Road. And the applicant is indicating that the existing facility, which is just over 6,000 square feet in area, will be expanded with a new over 12,000 square foot, 16-foot high addition. Their preliminary landscape plan shows a new landscape border along the south side of the new addition, and the relocation of the trash collection area on the south side of the proposed addition versus what they show in their preliminary development plan, which shows that there's no change on the location of the trash collection. So we would like to request some clarification on that. And in the neighborhood meeting notes that the applicant provided in their application, the applicant clarified to those who attended that the gated entrance from Salvatore Place, that's at the northwest corner of the property, will continue to be just for emergency vehicles only, and that the existing gate on that location will be replaced with a new gate. That's all I have for now, Mr. Urino. You have our staff report. I'll be available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Galloso. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to be heard?
Yes, sir. Mr. Urino?
Yep.
My name is Dan White. I think you can hear me.
Yes, I can, Mr. White. Go right ahead.
Yeah, good. I'm with a company called Keiko. And we were involved in the original development plan for this project back in 2003, 2001. And at that time, what they had planned to do is they had planned to construct a building similar to what is proposed now. And the special exception was granted at that time for a 32-bed facility, which is very similar to what's proposed now. The buildings are pretty much the same size. Now, the previous owner, what he had done was constructed all the infrastructure associated with the large development, which included the retention basin, and included the parking area, included the trash enclosure, included the access to Vozak. It was also agreed that the pedestrian access would be provided to Salvador Place as an alternative to going to Vozak, because in going from Vozak, you have to cross the wash. So it didn't seem like a good idea to carry up pedestrian access across the marsh. And so all of that was constructed. Unfortunately, the building was not constructed. Only a small portion of the building was constructed. And the new purchaser of the property came in and she decided that she was going to continue with basically the same development plan that existed back in 2003. But she was advised that because of the time span, which goes back 2003 or so, she would have to submit a new development plan. And as part of that, she'd have to obtain a new special exception. And so that's what we're here for today, is for that special exception. Now, in dealing with issues associated with the site, the owner marched around from neighborhood to neighborhood, and she petitioned the local people as to whether they were interested, or I should say, whether they agreed with this kind of development. And she had 24 letters in affirmation. And so this project is a well-conceived project. It's a project that's been around for a reasonably long time. It really isn't much different than what was proposed back in 2003 that was approved by the city. To correct a couple of things, on the staff report, I think the trash enclosure is going to stay where it's at. We don't have any intention to move the trash enclosure. We don't have any intention to change the parking spaces or the access or any of the rest of this stuff. The intent is just to build the building, okay? And, you know, there's going to be additional landscaping, there'll be depressed landscaping, there'll be water harvesting. They're going to be all part of the project. Something, too, that's not completely correct is that what we originally showed on the preliminary development plan was something in the neighborhood of about, what, 12,200 square feet as a building addition. It's going to be slightly larger. It's going to be 13,100 or 200, something like that. But the setbacks will be respected as required by a special exception. I think I've pretty much covered all the bases. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Thank you, sir. No, I don't have any questions. Ms. Galloso, did that respond to your question about the trash enclosure?
Yes, Mr. Urino, I guess the landscape plan will need to be revised at one point. But the conditions, you know, the preliminary conditions suggested by staff include, you know, to keep at good distance from that south property line, that potential new trash enclosure.
Right, and I saw that, and thank you for bringing that up. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this case? Hearing no one, I'm going to close the hearing on case SE 2105. Our next and last case for tonight's hearing is case C9 2109 Blackledge Drive, MH1 and MH2 to R3.
So, Mr. Reno, this is a request by Kevin Hall of Cypress Civil Development on behalf of the property owner, Philip Hall of Oasis MHP LLC, to rezone approximately 1.5 acres from MH1 and MH2 to R3. The project is located between East Monte Vista Drive and East Blackledge Drive, approximately 700 feet east of North Alvernon Way, and more specifically at 4025 East Monte Vista and 4028 East Blackledge Drive. The preliminary development plan proposes a single-family residential subdivision with 23 lots, 19 lots on west side of the project area and 4 lots on the east side, being divided by a north-south private road. The proposed homes will have a maximum building height of 21 feet. Let's see. So the preliminary development plan, as again, it shows the single-family residential subdivision consisting of 23 individual lots. There'll be 2 community amenity areas, visitor parking, and the associated paved access from Monte Vista Drive and Blackledge Drive, with primary vehicle access out to Alvernon, which is an arterial street on the city's major streets and routes. The project site consists of combining 2 parcels, with the rezoning request extending the existing R3 zoning on the south 1/2 acre to the north 1.5 acres to encompass the entire 2-acre project site. Proposed single-family residential subdivision is again will be divided by that north and south private road, and the proposed homes will be no taller than 21 feet, with maximum height allowed for residential use. Single family in the R3 zone is 25 feet. The proposed rezoning is consistent with surrounding residential zones and land uses, with the project site being surrounded by R3 and MH1 zoning, with adjacent uses consisting of mobile home parks, multifamily apartments, and single-family residences. The proposed rezoning of the site from MH1 and MH2 to R3 is appropriate for this location. It's compatible with the surrounding land uses, and it is in compliance with the Grant Alvernon Area Plan and Plan Tucson. Subject to compliance with the attached preliminary conditions, approval of the requested R3 zoning is recommended. And then as to today, there's been 0 approvals and 1 protest.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Mr. Hall, would you like to be heard?
Yes, please. And thank you, Mr. Urino. And thank you, John, for that intro. Really appreciate it. As Mr. Beal indicated, my name is Kevin Hall. I'm with Cypress Civil Development. We are located at 2030 East Speedway, Suite 110. We're a local site development engineering firm, and we have done many projects throughout the region, and both commercial and residential. Very familiar with the various city processes. I would like to mention, beyond the project itself, the background here. This is a family-owned project. The land there was bought in the early 1940s by my grandparents when they moved out here, relocated from Texas, and they established their homestead here. And on this site, my dad, who is Phil Hall, who is on the call, and his 4 brothers grew up at the site, attended Catalina High School, and most of them went to the U of A. So we're local folks here, and we want to make sure this project is a good project for the neighborhood. We're very well vested in the neighborhood. So as Mr. Beal explained, we are looking to do a single-family residential project. The existing development is a single house on the south 1/2 acre, and then a mobile home park that my grandparents developed on the north 1.5 acres. We are zoned R3 on that south 1/2 acre already. We are looking to rezone the north 1.5 to R3 to make this development work. Currently, that zoning is MH1 and MH2, where the mobile home park is. We are located in an area immediately to the west of us is high density multifamily units. There's a 2-story apartment building, or a couple of 2-story apartment buildings immediately west. Mobile home park to the west, and then further out towards Alvernon, more apartment buildings there. To the east is mobile home parks, as well as some rental home units immediately adjacent. And then you get into more single family. To the north is primarily mobile home parks. To the south is primarily single family residential. We have found that the vast majority of these areas or these lots are rental units. Owners don't live in them anymore. That's just happened over time. We are proposing to connect a road through the development to connect Monte Vista and Blackledge, which currently does not exist, but that will provide a through street to access all the new homes there. It's a similar setup to what's recently been done just east of here between Monte Vista and Glen. There's a new development that's just finishing construction, very similar layout. And another project just off of Blackledge and Columbus. It's also a similar type, but that's in more of a cul-de-sac arrangement there. The idea is for a 2-story single-family product. We do not have a home builder lined up yet. We wanted to get advanced through the rezoning process to a certain point, get plans put together before we really engaged any potential home builders. We've been involved in the past with very similar projects. The Park Modern project at Blackledge and Tyndall was one of the first FLD projects, flexible lot development projects that went through. This is also a flexible lot development project. Camino Modern out at Camino Seco and Golf Links, Old Spanish Trail, excuse me. That's another one we've been involved in, and one currently under construction, Mountain Enclave, that's off of Mountain Avenue, north of the Fort Lowell Prince area. So we're familiar with this. One thing on the flexible lot development projects, for those that are unaware, there are certain code requirements we have to meet to be able to do this type of development. One being the functional open space, and as Mr. Beal explained, we have 2 open space areas that we are incorporating into this development on the east side of the development, which we believe, which for one, the combined area of those 2 locations are more than double the required open space, functional open space areas for what we're trying to do here under the FLD. And again, trying to make it a very nice community for people to live in. We wanted to make some nice amenity spaces there. We'll have vegetation, obviously, so walking paths through there, benches. We're still kind of developing that design, but we do want to make those areas nice for the community. Let's see what else. We have been in close contact with the ward folks throughout the process. We did have a neighborhood meeting back in March. We had one neighbor attend. He was an owner of like a quadplex, triplex at the corner of Blackledge and Sycamore, which is just kind of off the northwest corner of our development. He was on the call for about 2 minutes, asked if we were going to have garages in the units, and we said yes, we would. And then he said, okay, thanks, and he left. And that was the only public participant in that neighborhood meeting. So a very short meeting. That's pretty much it. I don't know if you need me to address the protest that was recently received, or if you want me to just turn it over and open it up to the public.
Mr. Hall, I've seen the protest. I don't have any questions for you about that protest.
Okay.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to be heard on this case?
I would actually.
Okay.
It's Catalina Point here, David Sorrell. We weren't informed of either of these cases. So how do we as a community of 32 homes become informed about these developments that affect us?
And so I'll take a stab at answering that, but those questions could probably be best answered by Planning and Development Services, because the cases come to me at a different point in the process than what you're asking about. Is your homeowners association in this area within,
I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you where that area is.
Oh, so this is a rezoning for pretty much central Tucson, close to where I live. And so if your HOA is not relating to that area, you probably wouldn't get notice. You can always go to the Planning and Development Services Department website, and there's a tab there for the zoning examiner. You can click on that tab, or that link rather, and you'll see all the prior meetings and the current agendas, and sometimes, well, always if there are future meetings within the time frame, you'll see them there.
Okay.
If you don't have any specific comments on this case, then we'll move on.
I do not, John. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else in the audience like to be heard on this case? Hearing no one, Mr. Hall, I appreciate your presentation. I want you to know that as I always do, I toured around the neighborhood and saw the property before tonight's hearing, so I'm understanding very well your description of the other land uses in the area. And I must say that I am especially appreciative of the fact that while using the FLD, you're going beyond what's required as far as the functional open space. I think that's a laudable thing to do. So with that said, I want to thank you for participating, and I'm closing the hearing on this case. For anyone else who's still with us, I want to wish everyone a very safe evening, and it's been raining, so we should all be at least a little bit happy. So everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.